Picture waking up on Christmas morning, ice patterns on the inside of your bedroom window, your breath visible indoors, the cold biting at your nose as you pull the blankets tighter. This wasn't just any winter, this was Christmas in 1970s Britain when the house was freezing, but hearts were somehow warmer. For those who lived it, Christmas back then wasn't about having everything. It was about making do, gathering close, and finding magic in the simple things. One big present, one family television, one moment when the whole nation stopped to watch the same thing at the same time. If you experienced Christmas in the 70s, prepare yourself. These memories will hit you right where it hurts. Your bedroom was an icebox. Waking up on Christmas morning meant bracing yourself. Single-glazed windows covered in frost patterns, delicate ferns, and swirls crystallized on the inside of the glass. You'd scrape them off with your fingernail just to see if it was snowing outside. Central heating was a luxury most families didn't have. You slept under heavy blankets, sometimes with your coat laid on top for extra warmth. Your clothes for the day were already laid out, usually at the foot of the bed because getting dressed required military planning. The house had one coal fire downstairs, and that was it. Christmas morning meant leaping out of bed, grabbing your presents, and sprinting downstairs to the living room where the fire might, if you were lucky, already be lit. Your dad had been up since dawn, fighting with newspaper and kindling, trying to get flames from damp coal. The smell of it, that thick sooty warmth, meant Christmas had truly begun. You didn't complain about the cold. Nobody did. It was simply how life was. Cold bedrooms, icy bathrooms, and one warm room where the entire family huddled. And somehow that made Christmas morning even more special. The dash downstairs, the shock of cold floorboards, the relief of reaching the fire. It built anticipation. It made you grateful. The tree went up a week before Christmas, never earlier. Decorations were chaotic, beautiful, and utterly mismatched. Nothing coordinated. Multicolored fairy lights that took an hour to untangle, usually with half the bulbs not working. Your dad would spend Christmas Eve testing each one, cursing under his breath, until finally the whole string flickered to life. The baubles were ancient, glass ones that smashed if you looked at them wrong. Some were your nan's from the 50s, others were newer, but nothing matched. Bright red next to silver next to gold. The tree itself was probably artificial, bought from Woolworths, slightly wonky. Real trees were expensive and messy. Tinsel went everywhere, draped across the tree, wrapped around the banister, looped along the mantelpiece. And then the ceiling decorations, those pull-out paper garlands, concertina style in every colour imaginable. You'd pin them up with drawing pins or sellotape, and by Boxing Day, half of them would be sagging or fallen down completely. Taller uncles walked straight into them, but it looked festive. It looked like Christmas, and when you plugged in those fairy lights for the first time, the room glowed. There was a smell too. You couldn't mistake it. Dust burning off the bulbs, mixing with coal smoke and whatever your mum was cooking. That was Christmas. The double issue of Radio Times and TV Times arrived like treasure, thick, glossy, packed with listings. Christmas television was serious business. You couldn't record anything. No pause button, no catch-up. If you missed it, it was gone forever. Families sat together, biros in hand, circling the programs they wanted to watch. Arguments broke out. The big film, the Christmas specials, Morecambe and Wise. The generation gap meant nothing because everyone watched the same 3 channels. BBC One, BBC Two, ITV. That was it. And from December 23rd, the schedule was packed solid. Christmas morning started with cartoons. You'd be up at 6, freezing cold, huddled in front of the television in your pajamas, clutching your selection box. The TV didn't warm up instantly either. You'd switch it on and wait while it hummed and crackled into life, the picture gradually appearing. Later, the Queen's speech at 3 o'clock. The whole country stopped. Dinner was timed around it. Your mum would be panicking in the kitchen, making sure the turkey was ready, the vegetables weren't overcooked, and the table was set. Meanwhile, the rest of the family sat in the living room, full from too many sweets, waiting. And then the main event, Morecambe and Wise, the 1977 Christmas special, attracted 28 million viewers, half the population of Britain. Everyone you knew watched it. Elton John wandering lost through Television Centre, the dance number with all the BBC presenters, Eric and Ernie dressed as Charladies. It was a shared national experience that simply doesn't exist anymore. Food in the 70s was different. Christmas dinner was traditional, yes, but the starter, that was posh. Prawn cocktail. If your family served prawn cocktail, you'd arrived. Iceberg lettuce, tinned prawns, Marie Rose sauce, all served in a glass dish. It felt fancy, it felt special. And if you didn't have prawn cocktail, you might have pâté shaped like a Christmas tree or a dome, served with triangles of toast. The turkey was enormous. Your mum had been up since dawn checking it, worrying over it, spooning fat over the top. Roast potatoes, Brussels sprouts boiled until they surrendered, carrots, parsnips and gravy made from Bisto granules, bread sauce, cranberry sauce from a tin. It was a feast, but it wasn't fancy. It was filling, reliable, and exactly what Christmas should taste like. Pudding was Christmas pudding, dark, dense, soaked in brandy and set alight. Everyone watched as the blue flames flickered. Inside somewhere was a sixpence. Whoever found it got good luck for the year. Served with custard or brandy butter, it was stodgy, rich and absolutely essential. After dinner, the wrapping paper mountain. Nobody folded or saved it. You tore into presents, paper flying everywhere, the living room floor disappearing under a sea of gaudy patterns. And then, bloated and tired, the family collapsed in front of the television. The afternoon film, more chocolates. The tin of quality Street or Roses passed around until only the hard toffees remained. Christmas presents in the 70s were different. You didn't get piles of them. You got one big present, the thing you'd begged for all year, and maybe a few smaller bits. A selection box, an annual, some socks from your nan. But that one big present, that mattered. A chopper bike, bright orange or yellow with the high handlebars and the gear stick. If you got one of those, you were king of the street. Girls might get Tiny Tears, the doll that cried real tears and wet herself. Cutting-edge technology in 1970s toy form, or maybe Etch-a-Sketch, Space Hopper, Scale Extric. These weren't throwaway toys, they were treasures. You looked after them because you knew you wouldn't get another for a year. And Christmas morning, unwrapping that one thing you dreamed about for months, was pure magic. The anticipation, the surprise, the joy. Today, kids get rooms full of presents and forget half of them by New Year. Back then, you got one thing, and you remembered it forever. The corner shop stayed open Christmas morning, just for an hour or two, in case anyone needed milk, bread, or had forgotten something essential. Mr. Patel or Mrs. Jones behind the counter, wishing everyone Merry Christmas, handing out sweets to the kids who came in with their parents. The milkman delivered on Christmas morning too, clinking bottles on the doorstep before dawn. Extra pints because everyone needed more milk for tea, for puddings, for guests. The coal man had delivered earlier in the week, sacks of coal stacked by the front door, because running out over Christmas was unthinkable. Streets were quieter, fewer cars, families stayed home. You'd see neighbours briefly, waving from doorsteps, shouting Merry Christmas across garden fences, but mostly people were inside, together, warm, safe. The sense of community was real. If an elderly neighbour lived alone, someone checked on them, took them a plate of dinner, invited them round for tea. It wasn't forced or formal, it was just what you did. Christmas was about looking after each other. Evening arrived and the house cooled again. The fire needed constant attention. More coal, more poking. The warmth only reached so far, about 6 feet. Sit too far away and you froze. Sit too close and you roasted. Families squeezed onto the sofa, fighting for the spot nearest the fire. The Christmas tree lights twinkled. Someone passed round the tin of biscuits. The television continued its unbroken stream of Christmas programming. Films you'd seen before but watched again because what else was there to do? As the evening wore on, tiredness set in. Too much food, too much excitement. Kids crashed, exhausted, while adults lingered, sipping sherry, half watching the television. The fire burned lower, the room grew dimmer. Outside, frost crept back across the windows. Bedtime meant retreating to that icebox bedroom again. The cold hit you like a wall. You'd run upstairs, dive under the covers, fully clothed sometimes, and lie there shivering until your body heat warmed the bed. Tomorrow it would all start again. Leftovers, Boxing Day telly, more chocolates. But tonight, Christmas Day was over, and it had been perfect. Ask anyone who experienced Christmas in 1970s Britain, and they'll tell you the same thing. We had less, much less, fewer presents, fewer channels, colder houses, but somehow it felt like more. There was togetherness, the whole family crammed into one warm room, the whole nation watching the same television program at the same time, neighbours checking on neighbours, traditions that everyone shared, the radio times, the prawn cocktail, Morecambe and Wise. We didn't have central heating, but we had each other. We didn't have endless choice, but we had shared experiences. And maybe that's what makes these memories hurt so much. Not because the 70s were better, they weren't. They were colder, harder, and more difficult in many ways. But because Christmas back then felt special, it felt earned. The one day when everything stopped, when families came together, when the cold outside made the warmth inside more precious, when getting that one perfect present meant everything. Christmas today is easier, warmer, more comfortable, but something was lost. The anticipation, the simplicity, the shared joy. If you experienced Christmas in 1970s Britain, you know exactly what I mean. The ice on the inside of the windows, the smell of the coal fire, the whole family squeezed onto the sofa for Morecambe and Wise. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and we'll never forget it. If this brought back memories, share it with someone who remembers. Hit subscribe to keep these stories alive. Drop a comment telling us your favourite Christmas memory from the 70s. I really love reading all of your stories. Until next time, hold those memories close. They're worth more than any present.